In this video, I'm going to create a continuous data histogram using the TI-84. The TI-83 is very similar, and I'll try to mention some differences as we go along. I'm going to use this data set. It's the time between eruptions at the Old Faithful geyser in Wyoming. So for instance, 7:28, that means that's about 6 minutes. It means for that particular case, it was about 6 minutes between eruptions of Old Faithful. And I've got 75 numbers here. I'm going to put them in on the calculator. So here's the calculator. I've already got it turned on. To enter the data, I'm going to go to Stat, and then Edit, where you can hit number 1. I'll just hit Enter here. I've already put in the data, and what I've done is I've gone along the rows. So in this data set, it's nice because there are 5 numbers in each row, so it's easy to count. As I type in the first 5 numbers, I'll see the 5th one is 703, the 10th one then will be 713, the 15th will be 672. I've actually already typed the data in, but I could use that as a way to see whether I made any mistakes. So the 5th number should be 703. If I go down, I'll show that 703. The 10th number should be 713. The 15th number should be 672. And actually, that's actually the lowest value, so we're going to use that. And if I go down, you'll see I put in 45 numbers. There's 45 numbers in this data set. When you get to the bottom, it'll actually say 46, but that's because this is blank. It's ready to enter a 46 number if we want to. But the last number you'll see is item number 45, or observation 45. So now let's go build the histogram. So I'm going to quit out of this, hit second, and then quit. And the first thing I need to do is I need to make sure that there are no other graphs on, no regular graphs. So I'll come up here to the Y equals menu. This is where you put normal graphs on the TI-84 or TI-83. And I've got a graph that's already turned on here, a Y equals X squared. I don't need to delete it. I can keep it. Maybe I've got that for another class. But I need to turn this off. So I move the cursor over so it's highlighted over the equals. And notice how it's highlighted in black. If I hit enter, now notice it's not highlighted in black, which means that graph is off. If I didn't turn it off, when I went to do my histogram, it would give me an error. So if you get an error while you're doing your histogram, check the Y equals menu and see if you've got a graph that's on, and just turn all of them off. You don't have to delete. Hit second, quit. Now I'm going to go to stat plot. Stat plot is the shifted version of the Y equals menu. Here it's in blue because it's the TI-84. On the TI-83 that'll be in yellow. And what that tells you is you need to hit the second button on either the TI-83 or the TI-84. So blue, blue, or yellow, yellow on the TI-83. So hit second, and then stat plot. And I've already got a plot that's on. It's actually the one I was working on this earlier. But let's say I had other plots that were on and I want to turn them off because I only want to show my histogram. Down here you can see it says plots off. So I can hit number 4. Let's put plots off on the home screen, and I'll hit enter, and that will turn all of them off. So I'll go back to the second stat plot, and so they're all off now, and I'm going to go and turn this one on. So if you're just starting out on the calculator and you haven't used it before, haven't done any stat plots, so I'm going to come up to item number 1, plot number 1, hit enter. You notice it'll come up, it's selecting a scatter plot, which is what this one is. I'm going to turn this on, then I'll press the down arrow and go over, and I hit enter to turn this on. Press down to come to the type, and then press over. I'm going to use the right and left buttons. Choose a histogram. And usually by default, it's going to pick list 1 for your data values. In a bit, we'll do a histogram built from a frequency table. So I'm just using the raw data, the raw observations. So I'm just going to use L1 because all those observations are in list 1. But I need to change the frequency. So sometimes this will come up, when you start it, it'll say frequency 1, which is what we want. Here it says L2. So I need to change this to 1. The 1 means I'm only counting each observation once. When I go to build a histogram from a frequency table, the frequencies will be in L2 and the classes will be in L1, or the lower limit of the of the of each class. So notice it's flashing this A, which means the alpha is on. So I need to turn that off, otherwise when I go to hit 1, it'll give me a Y, and I don't want that. So come up here to the alpha button, up in the top left. It's green on my calculator. And I'll hit alpha. I think it's green on the TI-83 as well. That turns it off, turns off that A, so now it's just a flashing block here. Now I can hit 1 and hit enter. Now let's say you put your data in L2, let's say there was already data in L1, or you put it in L3. If you want to change the list where your data comes from, I put mine in L1. You can put it in L2 or L3 or any other list. So if you look down at the 1, 2, 3 buttons over on the calculator, you'll see above the 1 it says, in blue or yellow it says L1, above the 2 it says L2, above the 3 it says L3. Same for 4, 5, and 6, it'll say L4, L5, and L6. So if you put your data, your observations into L2, you would go second, and then the 2 button, second L2, and then hit enter. Or if it was list 4, you go second, and then the 4 button to get list 4. But I put my data in list 1, so I'm going to go second L1, or second 1 to get L1. So that's pretty much what I want. I turn the plot on. I've got a histogram. My data is in list 1, and I'm using each one once. So I'm not doing a frequency table or a frequency distribution to get my data. I'm using a list of raw data. So now I'm going to quit out of this. Hit second, quit. And I want to do just a default plot before, and then I'll fix it after that. So to do the default plot, I'm going to go up here to the zoom button, the top middle button. I'll hit zoom, and I want to do a zoom stat to get a default histogram. So zoom stat is item number 9, so I'll click down here using the down arrow and find item number 9, and then I can hit enter. Or if I wanted to, when I first come onto the screen, because I know now that zoom stat is number 9, I can just hit number 9. So I'm going to do that. So that gives me the default histogram, but that's not what I want. I want it to look a little bit different. I'll show you what I want it to look like. So I want to use a frequency table, or what I want is, if I built a frequency table, which we'll do in a bit, we'll come back to this, I want my lower class limit for my first class to be 670, because my smallest data value was 672. And I want it to go up to, the highest is like 738. So I'm going to do a class width of 10, which means, notice the last class goes up to 739, and the reason is because here my last class starts at 730. If I went up one more, another 10, if I went up another 10, I would be at 740. And 740 is going to be my X max. It's not really in the table, but I need to know the next class up. If I built another class, it would be start with 740. So I want my graph, when I put it in the calculator, to go from 670, that's going to be the X min, up to 740, 10 jump, 10 unit jump above 730. The X max is going to be 740. And my class width, or my X scale, is going to be 10, because my class width is 10 each time. And ultimately I want my histogram to look like this. So it starts at 670, the class width is every 10. So this next class, actually starts at 680, this class starts at 690. So this is going 670 up to 679. And so the X max is going to be 740. So X min will be 670, X max will be 740, and the X scale is going up by 10 every time. So now we'll come back to the calculator. To fix this, I'm going to go to the window. So on the top, it's the second button from the left. I'll hit window. And I need to fix these numbers, X min, X max, and X scale. And I'll also do something about Y min, Y max, and Y scale. So let me go back to the histogram and see what that looks like. So this is the histogram I want to build. I want it to look like this. So I'm going to go from 0 up to 12. That's Y min and Y max. And I'm going to go up by 2 each time. That's the Y scale. Y scale is 2. So again, I want my X min, that's my lower class limit of my first class. I want that to be 670. I want my X max to be 740. Notice again, my last class, the upper limit was 739, but I need to go one above that to get my X max. And my X scale is the same as my class width. I have a class width of 10, so my X scale will be 10. My Y min, I'm going to leave this at -4 for now. On this graph here, it's starting with a Y min of 0, but I actually need to leave some space at the bottom here so that when I do a trace, I can see this stuff down here. So I'm going to leave the Y min alone, and I'm going to change this to a Y max of 12 and a Y scale of 2. Again, that puts the tick marks every 2 on the vertical axis. So I'm done with this. This is in the window menu. I'm going to go back to the graph, the top right button, and now it looks like the other graph. It looks basically like this histogram that we already have built. And now I notice I left some space here. That's so I can use the trace command. So I'm going to see what the value, what the height of each of these, because I didn't build on the calculator. I didn't build a frequency distribution first. So I can use this now to check to build a frequency histogram or a frequency distribution. So I can build the histogram first and then make my own frequency distribution off of it using the trace command. So go to the trace. It's the 4th button on the top here. And notice this says minimum is 670 and max is less than 680, which means the upper limit for the first class is actually 679 because it's less than a 680. So that has a frequency of 2. If I press over, notice I need to have this, even though there's no bar here, I need this because it's in the middle of the data. I can't just leave this off because then the graph would be misleading. I need to leave this in here so I have a class width of 10 each time. That class does exist. Notice I don't have any classes out to the side, the top and bottom, because I don't need, it's pointless to have bars out here that are 0. But if it's in the middle, I have to have that. I have to keep that. So it's got a frequency of 0. This had a frequency of 7. This is from 690 up to 699. This one has a frequency of 9, 9, 11, and 7. So keep track of those numbers and we'll go look at the frequency distribution we already have built. So 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, 7. So those should be the values in the frequency table or the frequency distribution that we're building. And in fact, that's exactly what we get. The frequencies are 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, and 7. That's exactly what it looks like. So here this went from 670, 680, we're going up by 10 each time, that's my class width. I started with a lower limit for the first class of 670, that was my X min. I had to go all the way up to the last class and then go 10, the class width, whatever the class width is, go up again, that gives me 740, and 740 was my X max. So now let's build this just from the frequency table. Okay, so I know what these values are, I know I'm just going to use the lower limits each time and the frequencies now. I'm going to put the lower limit, just this stuff here, in L1, and the frequencies in L2. And the graph's going to look the same, but we can fix it again. We'll see. It's already set up for this, but if you were putting in the frequency table fresh, your histogram wouldn't look like right, and you'd have to fix it. So let's go do that on the calculator. So now I'm going to do this from a frequency table. So I'll go back to the stat, this button up here, edit, and I've got the data in here, but I don't need it, so I'm going to clear that out. So I press up, clear, enter. Now I want to put in here from 670 up to 730. Again, 740, my last class starts at 740, or it starts at 730. So I want my last class, the last value in L1 to be 730. I'm going to put in these numbers on the left, 670 up to 730, going up by the class width of 10 each time. So put in these values, so 670, 680, 690, 700, 710, 720, 730. So now I want to put the frequencies over in L2. I'll press over here, and it's going to start me at the first value. Let's go take a look at the frequency table again. You might want to pause it to write these numbers down. So my frequencies are going to be 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, and 7. And you could figure out those by tallying them by hand, or you could figure out them by getting it from the calculator, getting it from the raw data, and making a histogram, and then using the trace to find the frequencies. So 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, 7. So remember those numbers. Alright, we're back on the calculator. I'm going to put the frequencies in L2. It's going to be 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, 7. And notice when I get to the bottom, my last frequency I put in should match up with the last class that I put in. There shouldn't be a class 740 down here. I'm going to use 740 as my X max like we did before. That's because it would be the next class if we went up one bar. Because again, we need the bar to go from 740 over to 730 over to 740. So I need 740 in there when I graph it, but not on my frequency table itself. So let's quit out of this. Now we've got the values. Make sure, let's go back to stat plot, hit second stat plot. And now I need to fix this. Notice it's using L1 for the list, but now it's classes, so I need to change this frequency. It says 1, but I need to change it to L2. So I'll hit enter and open plot 1. It's already on. It's already a histogram. X1, the X list now gives me my classes, not the data itself, not the raw data. And I need to change this so the frequencies are coming from list 2, or L2. Come up here, hit second, and then L2, and hit enter. So now let's quit out of this. And if I go back to the window, I already have this set up the way I want it, but I don't want to, I can't assume it was this way. My calculator may not have had that at the time, so I'm going to quit out of this. I'm going to go to zoom, again hit 9 for zoom stat. It's going to build me something. In this case it built it correctly, because, I don't know, because it was already set up, but, it's because, it built it correctly because I had the classes in there. I had 670 up to 740. I told it what I wanted. Or I had 670 up to 730, and it was smart enough to figure it out. But if it wasn't smart enough to figure it out, we'll come back here to the window and put in 670, 740, class width of 10, and I can put in, I'll leave that X, Y min where it's at, I'll use the Y max, I'll put that in as 12 because that's what we used before, and a Y scale of 2, and so it's already set up. And then when I hit the trace, it's going to, I can step through and see my frequencies that I put in already. Alright, let me show you one more thing. I'm going to step back to the data that we had earlier, and just the raw list of data, and show you how you can change the class width on the fly if you have the data in there. If you've got a frequency table entered, then you can't change it on the fly, but if you've got the raw data, you can change the class width quite easily. So let's look at that. Let me enter the data again. Alright, I've got my raw list of data entered again in L1. Let me show you real fast. Once you've got this, let's say, that took me a long time to enter, so let me show you how to save it off. I'm going to copy it into L3, so if I want to, I can get it back later. So let's say, let's show how to do that. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, hit second, quit. And what I want to do is take L1, list 1, and copy it into L3. So I'm going to use the second one, or second L1, and I want to store that into L3. So I'm going to use this SPO button here down in the bottom left. When I press that, it gives me a little arrow, and I want to store it into list 3. So I'm going to hit second L3, and hit enter. And there's the list of data, but when I go back to stat, edit, you'll notice it's made a perfect copy over here of L1 into L3. And actually if I press up, I can look at the bottom of the list to make sure it's copied. Alright, so now I have this later, I have this here. So let's say, later if I cleared this out, well, I should have done this earlier. If I cleared this, and I did that exercise where I put in just the classes, 670, 680, 690, 700, 710, 720, 730. If I built that, and then put the frequencies in here, 2, 0, 7, 9, 9, 11, 7. So I did that a little earlier. So let's say Now I'm done with that, and I want to go back and use the original data, but I want to use L1. Clear that out. Begin to clear, you press up, clear, and enter. So if I want to take this data and copy it back into L1, if I go back and quit, I go second, L3, store, STO down here, into L1. Now I'll copy it back to L1. Now I have the data back where I want it. I hit stat, edit, notice my data's back here. It's still stored safely in L3, so that way I can store off data and use it later. So I'm going to go back and build the histogram we had before, same thing I did at the beginning of this video. So here's the histogram I built with a raw set of data. Again, it starts at 670, there's the trace, it starts at 670, and it goes up by 10 every time. Notice the min is going up by 10, all the way up to the last class, which starts at 730 to 739. So let's say I wanted to do my class width instead of 5. If I'm using the raw data, I can do that on the fly. So I'll go back to the window here, and all I need to do is change this to an X scale, that's my class width. It's the same thing as class width. Change that to 5, and I'll hit graph. And now it's done, notice it's doubled up the number of bars, so it's done a class width of 5. If I do a trace, I can see where that is. And if I want to fix this to the top bars, it looks like it goes to 7. So if I wanted to, I can make the top maybe 10 instead of 12. We go back to window, change the Y max to 10 just to stretch it out a little bit. Go back to graph. And now it's a little bit bigger. If I want, I could even make it 8 because my tallest bar is 7. And down here, change the Y max to 8. And now when I do the trace, I've got a big gap down here. I can eliminate that. I really only need this to go like what, -2 or something to leave enough space. Go back to window. My Y min right now is -3.3, so I'll change this to -2. I didn't need as much space at the bottom, and that shifts the whole graph down a little bit. And now when I still left enough space when I do the trace so I can read this stuff. So my graph looks like this. It's stretched out a little bit. It's easy. I can draw it by hand then. If I made the Y min 0, I'll do that real fast. I make Y min 0. The reason you don't want to do that on the calculator is then when you do a trace, it puts the numbers over top of the graph, and it's hard to see the graph when you do that. So that's why we want to leave some space at the bottom, make the Y min negative something, so we can leave some room here when we do the trace. Alright, so that's how you build a histogram, both from raw data and from a frequency table on the TI-84, and the TI-83 is very, very simple.